Mr. Speaker, the member bragged about the CERB. According to the Financial Transactions and Reports Analysis Centre of Canada, reporting entities indicated that clients have applied for and received CERB despite not living in Canada and appear to be residing in a jurisdiction of concern. How many people not living in Canada got the CERB? How many?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'm happy that the honourable colleague wants to talk something of substance, and so let's talk about the CEBA that helped over 898,000 small businesses survive. Think of the families, think of the people that helped to afford housing and to make their ends meet, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Carleton.
I'm glad to know that he doesn't think housing or debt are matters of substance. Back to the CERB fraud. How many people not in Canada got the CERB? How many?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the wage subsidy helped over 450,000 employers keep more than 5.3 million employees on the payroll. That's our track record.
The question was about the CERB, not the wage subsidy. How many people not in Canada got the CERB? How many?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'm not sure the honourable member heard me that when we're talking of substance, we're talking about Canadians that were supported.
Member for
9
Carleton.
million through the CERB.
I think the problem is he's not hearing me. The question was about the CERB. FinTrack says people who don't even live in Canada were getting the CERB. How many of them got it? How many?
Minister.
The data that I have shows very clearly 9 million Canadians who lost their jobs were supported by the CERB when the COVID hit.
Member for Carleton.
Did you just say 9 million people not living in Canada got the CERB?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I did not say that.
Member for Carleton.
So how many?
Mr. Speaker, 9 million Canadians living in Canada were supported by the CERB. Think about that. Transformative.
Member for Carleton.
Who will pay for the fraudulent CERB recipients?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the rent subsidy helped more than 230,000
Member for
businesses
Carleton.
survive.
Fraudulent CERB recipients was the question. How many?
Minister.
9 million Canadians supported by CERB.
Member for Carleton.
So the only number we're getting was 9 million when I asked how many people took the CERB that didn't live in Canada. If 9 million isn't the right number, which number is?
Speaker,
Minister.
maybe the honourable member would like to know about CEBA that helped over 898,000 small businesses survive.
Member for Carleton.
Why is the minister hiding the true number of people not living in Canada who got the CERB?
Minister.
Following a steep decline of 27% in the first half of the 2020, corporate profits rebounded to 61% above pre-pandemic levels.
Member for Carleton.
Could we replace the minister with a cassette tape that we could just hit play on?
I guess that's a question for the minister. Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'm sure there's all kinds of technological advancements available, but I can tell you that the wage subsidy helped over 450,000 employers.
Member for Carleton.
5.3 million.
Is there a technological advance that might help the minister answer the question?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the rent subsidy helped more than 213,000 businesses stay afloat. That's good for all Canadians.
Member for Carleton.
Can the officials who are here today hand the minister a new script? He seems to be reading one unrelated to the questions.
All right, Mr. Speaker.
Minister.
Let's talk about consumer confidence that went to an all-time low. It's back. That's good for business. That's good for Canadians.
Member for Carleton.
One last time, FinTrack, which is responsible for monitoring monies that are misappropriated, organized crime and money laundering, indicates that many people receive the CERB even though they don't even live in Canada. I'm going to ask one last time, how many was that?
Minister.
The member knows that FinTrack is independent. What we know is consumer confidence is back. The people are able to pay their bills thanks to our historic investments in their lives and in their livelihoods.
Member for Carleton.
What has been the inflation rate for the price of land in the last year?
Minister.
I'm glad to talk about inflation because we know that it's a global phenomenon.
Member for Carleton.
Land prices are a global phenomenon. Does the minister realize that the land we have here doesn't come from the rest of the globe? It's already here?
Minister.
I think you can read Hansard, and as the honourable colleague can, I said very clearly, inflation is a global phenomenon.
Member for Carleton.
Landflation, how much?
Minister.
Our inflation is in line with peer countries around the world, and in fact, we're doing much better than the United States, Mexico, and countries in the Eurozone.
Member for Carleton.
The question was about land price inflation. How much have land prices inflated in the last year?
Minister.
Land price is part of the basket of goods in inflation. Our inflation is in line with peer countries.
Member for Carleton.
He's allowed to say he doesn't know.
Mr. Speaker, we're focused on affordability, and that's what matters.
Member for Carleton.
There's no affordability to focus on. How much have house prices risen in the last year?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, Let me say that the unemployment rate had more than doubled from a pre-pandemic level of 5% in May 2020, and we are now
Member for Carleton.
6%.
Again, the question was how much have house prices inflated in the last year?
Can I take a second just when I say minister, then you can talk. Like you're starting to jump up. So, Member for Carleton. Or actually, sorry, Minister, to answer that question. Minister.
Thanks, Mr. Speaker. I think it's important for the honourable member across the way to understand that our government helped 9 million Canadians who lost their job through the CERB.
Carleton.
They hand him a speech that they wrote for him, a bureaucrat wrote for him, and he just stays glued to it. I mean, why don't we just elect a robot to read off these speeches that are written by bureaucrats in the finance department, because that robot at least would stick more tightly to the script than he has. If he doesn't actually have any answers to the factual questions, is it possible that he could be replaced with a robot?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, it is unfortunate that the member opposite doesn't like the answers that I'm providing, but I know that Canadians do. And the net worth of Canadian households fell by 3.6% in the first quarter of 2020, one of the largest declines on record. And this metric is now up 22% from its pre-crisis level. And consumer confidence is back on the rise. 156,000 jobs announced last week, 106% of jobs back.
Honourable member for Carleton.
Right. The question wasn't how much poorer Canadians have gotten. The question is how much more expensive their housing has become. Can the member tell us what is the average house price right across Canada today?
The Honourable Minister.
I think labour force participation is a good metric to help answer the member's question. It has reached a new high of 79.6%. That shows a strong sign of confidence about job prospects, and that's how people...
The Honourable member for Carleton.
Can the average Canadian afford the average house?
The Honourable Minister.
I'm not entirely sure what the question was, Mr. Speaker, but I can say this: 106%.
The Honourable member for Carleton.
The question was, can the average Canadian afford the average house?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we are there to support housing affordability and will continue to do so.
The Honourable member for Carleton.
All right. Maybe more specifically, then, what share of the average Canadian's take-home pay would they have to spend on mortgages and other housing costs in order to live in the average house?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, housing is a right. That is why this House has declared it as such. We've made historic investments in housing stock, housing affordability, and affordable housing, and will continue to do so.
The Honourable member for Carleton.
And what would it cost the average person to buy the average house in Canada today?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I think it's important to say that the economic contraction of the Canadian economy was 17%.
Member for Carleton.
We know the economy collapsed, but somehow real estate prices went up. The question was how much how much would it cost the average family to afford the average house today?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, GDP has rebounded to almost 99% of its pre-pandemic level. 106% of jobs have been recovered. 156,000 announced just last week.
The Honourable member for Carleton.
What is the average rent cost for the average Canadian today?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, over the first half of 2020, employment income fell by an unprecedented $28 billion.
Member for Carleton.